On our right is Fishergate Bar. This is the smallest of the 5 medieval gateways, first recorded in 1315. The red painted stone above the archway reveals the date of the current bar, which is 1487. 2 years after that date, the gateway was attacked and damaged in the Yorkshire peasants' revolt against Henry VII. The rebels burned the gates of the bar after murdering the Earl of Northumberland. The gateway was bricked up soon after and wasn't reopened until 1834 to give better access to the cattle market. The next stop is for the Novotel, which will be coming up on the left. Please ring the bell once if you require this or any other stop, and remain seated until the bus comes to a complete stop. Looking ahead, we can see the top of York Minster. It is the tallest structure in York. What we want you to see is the Minster, not a tower block. The present Minster has had 3 fires, in 1753, 1829 and 1984. It was because of the fire in 1829 that the Minster Police were formed, one of the oldest police forces in England. Ahead we can see the Travel Lodge, which is a modern building, but you can see how the architect has tried to get the building to fit in with old York. He's put a turret shape on it and covered the walls in magnesium limestone, the same stone the Minster and the city walls are made of. The idea is that eventually it will blend in with its older surroundings. Look to the left, and you can see in the distance a glass structure above the River Foss. This is York's flood barrier. A barrier is lowered from this structure to stop the River Ouse backing up the River Foss, and this stops the eastern side of the city from flooding, unless it fails, as it did in such spectacular fashion on Boxing Day 2015. We move on to Skeldergate Bridge and cross the River Ouse. Look to the right, and you may get a brief view along the shambles. At the far end, you can see how the houses nearly touch at the top. It is said that 2 men can lean out of the windows and shake hands across the street. If you heard the shout, "Gardez-vous," you would very quickly get under the overhang of the buildings, as "Gardez-vous" means "watch out for the water," and meant that the contents of somebody's chamber pot was about to be deposited on your head. Looking ahead is the Church of All Saints pavement, which has a beautiful lantern tower instead of a spire. In medieval times, a fire used to be lit in the top of the tower in order to guide travellers safely back to the city. There was no street lighting then, and so York was not as easy to find after dark as it is today. Also, York was surrounded by a great forest, the Forest of Gul Trees. It was dangerous to be lost there at night, as it is recorded that there were wild animals and robbers in the forest. We move into Coppergate. It doesn't get its name from the metal copper as you might think, but from cupra, the Norse word for cup maker. It was when the new Coppergate shopping precinct was being built in the late 1970s and early 1980s that over 40,000 finds from a Viking settlement were unearthed, beautifully preserved by the silt and mud around here. What was found here was so important that it even changed the way we teach about Vikings in the national school curriculum. Today you can see what was found in the Jorvik Viking Centre, where you can travel back in time over 1,000 years in York's history to experience the sights, the sounds and even the smells of Viking York. You can visit the Viking Centre from our next stop, but please remain seated until we arrive at the Clifford's Tower stop. At the end of Coppergate, on the left, is Castlegate, the original street to the castle. In Castlegate you will find the Church of St Mary's, which has the tallest spire in York, and Fairfax House, which is a beautifully renovated Georgian house, built between 1740 and 1745. As we move into a relatively modern street, Clifford Street, on the right, the York Dungeon is housed in the grand old Victorian Institute of Learning. It tells the grisly side of York's history, recalling tales of torture and misery, and stories of characters such as Dick Turpin and Guy Fawkes. We are now moving into Tower Street and the site of the castle. This is your stop for the Castle Museum, Clifford's Tower, York Boat River Cruises, the Jorvik Viking Centre, York Dungeon, Fairfax House, and St George's Field coach and car park. Against the Jews led to a group of about 150 going to the castle to seek refuge. The mob outside grew in number, demanding blood or baptism. Eventually, realizing there was no chance of escape, the Jews did the unimaginable and took their own lives. This is a very sad point in York's history, of which we are not proud, and to this day there is still only a small Jewish population living within the city. In 1993, the mound to our left was planted with thousands of daffodils, but the tower's roof is missing. It was there until St George's Day 1684, when a gun salute went spectacularly wrong. The soldiers managed to set fire to the gunpowder store as well as the cannons. The resulting explosion blew the roof completely off the castle. However, nobody was killed. Legend says that the guard who was on duty on the top was later found swimming in the moat. The castle was closed down shortly after. Over the hedge to our left is the graveyard of St George's Church, which has just one upstanding headstone through the gates on the left as we turn. This is the grave of Dick Turpin, the notorious Georgian highwayman who robbed stagecoaches in the 18th century. Dick Turpin was buried in the graveyard of the original St George's Church in 1739. Since his death, Turpin has become a romantic figure in English history, but the truth is far from the legend. The legend tells of a man who rode a horse called Black Bess. He would jump out from behind trees in front of stagecoaches shouting, "Stand and deliver, your money or your life." It was at this point you would give him all your money, and everybody would go home happy. In truth, he was believed to be a thief, a poacher, a burglar, and a murderer, not a nice man. And he never had a horse called Black Bess. That was made up about 100 years after his death, in a novel called Rookwood, by the Victorian novelist Harrison Ainsworth. Turpin was actually from Essex, but came to York to avoid capture using the assumed name of John Palmer. He laid low at a place just to the east of York, but one day the landlord's cockerel was keeping him awake, so Turpin shot it dead. It wasn't the cleverest thing to do, as it got him arrested. He was brought to York for trial, where he was found guilty of the more serious crime of being a horse thief. He was taken out to the Tyburn on the Knaves Mire, where he was hanged in 1739. Looking to the right, you will see a lovely timber-framed building. This is called Bowesmoral House and dates back to about 1400. In the 1800s, it was known as Kilmartin's, a lodging house for the poor. It is said that if you couldn't get a bed for the night, they would stretch a length of rope out from one end of the room to the other, and you would sleep hanging over the rope. This was known as a penny lean, and is possibly where we get the saying, "He can sleep on a clothesline." The Abbot's Lodging, the home of the Abbot of St Mary's. It is much bigger than when it was first built, after being extended in 1480 and again in 1610. It is said that King's Manor survived the dissolution of the monasteries even though St Mary's Abbey didn't, simply because Henry VIII liked it. The Council of the North, which governed this part of England on behalf of the monarch, was held there until 1641, when the council was abolished. Today, King's Manor is part of York University. Lucky students can get to study archaeology there, but it is still open to the public. Almost 2,000 years ago, a Roman named Quintus Atilius Cerealis was sent here from Lincoln to set up a fortress. He led the 9th Legion Hispania, whose job was to control the local Brigantes tribes around this area. In Lord Mayor's Walk, look to the right and we will get a nice view along the city walls. You can still see the defensive moat at the foot of the walls. This once would have been full of filthy water and rotting waste. Behind the wall, to the right, you can see York Minster, or to give it its proper title, the Cathedral and Metropolitical Church of St Peter in York. It is both a minster and a cathedral. City walls to allow for easier traffic flow in 1876 and move onto Lendal Bridge, which was opened in 1861, but it collapsed and wasn't reopened until 1863. It crosses the River Ouse, York's main river, which takes its name from the Celtic or pre-Celtic Oudsos, and probably means simply water or slow-flowing river. On the left is a tower with a conical-shaped roof. This is Barker Tower. It used to be the ferryman's cottage and was part of the city's defences when a chain would have been stretched across the river to the tower on the far bank to stop ships from attacking the city and to stop ships from leaving without paying their taxes.
So the one he half got right is he gave him a load of those. But then when he escaped...
On the right, the street of Lendal, opposite the museum gardens entrance, will take you down to the city centre shops, the Mansion House, which is the residence of the Lord Mayor of York, and Betty's Tea Rooms, which is the most famous tea rooms in the north. Be aware, Betty's is quite pricey, but it is well worth visiting for a treat, once you get past the queue. Ahead of us is York Minster, the jewel in York's crown, and the largest Gothic cathedral in Northern Europe. This present building took 252 years to complete. It was started in 1220 and not finished off until 1472. We say it's complete, but in actual fact the central tower should have a spire, about another 32 metres or 100 feet in height on the top, but the weight of the spire would have collapsed the central tower, so it was never built. The Minster has 128 stained glass windows containing over 3 million pieces of glass.
Yeah, this is where we need to get on.
On the right at the junction is the Visit York Information Centre. Times of evensong and other services in the Minster can be found there, or of course from the Minster itself. Whatever you do whilst you are here in York, please give the Minster a visit. It is stunning on the outside and simply breathtaking on the inside.
Is
that the one where it's said by the
With a conical-shaped roof. This is Barker Tower. It used to be the ferryman's cottage and was part of the city's defences when a chain would have been stretched across the river to the tower on the far bank to stop ships from attacking the city and to stop Stonebow. This is our nearest stop for York's most famous street, the Shambles, the medieval cobbled street of the butchers, the market, the city centre shops, and the Merchant Adventurers Hall. Please alight here for any of these places. The Merchant Adventurers Hall, which unfortunately we do not pass on our tour, can be found by alighting here and turning left into Fossgate just ahead, and then you will find the entrance about 1 minute's walk on the right. Built between 1357 and 1361, the Merchant Adventurers Hall is probably the finest medieval guild hall in Europe, and is said to be one of Prince Charles's favourite buildings, 627 AD, for the baptism of King Edwin of Northumbria. The central tower has 275 steps to the top, and the views are breathtaking. York Minster also has one of the finest collections of medieval stained glass in the world. The Great East Window is the largest in the Minster and tells the story of the Bible from Genesis It's also every Yorkshireman's favourite price to enter. Free.
So it's not.
Is it not free?
Well, they advertise it as free, and then they have like 6 people on the door being like, donations. We recommend £5 donations. And you manage to get past one of them.
Walk straight ahead under the tunnel, and in 4 or 5 minutes you'll be at the National
So
Railway
there's
Museum.
no way you could get in.
Unfortunately, we can't get you any closer due to the low bridge. Looking through the trees ahead, we can see the true scale and stature of the former Royal York Hotel. As we said, it used to be called the Royal York, but shouldn't have been, as none of the royal family have ever stayed in it.